one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Boganski.
Present remotely.
Counselor Lewis.
Present.
Counselor Balboni.
Present.
Counselor Carey.
Present.
Mayor Delnicki.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Saracusa. Counselor King.
Here.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Here.
Counselor Pendleton.
Present.
Thank you. This is going to be a tough one. I would like to have a moment of silence for a retired South Windsor police officer who passed away yesterday, Peter Alex. He died May 4th following a brief, courageous battle with cancer after serving I can't even read anymore. He retired in 2018 with the rank of a sergeant. So if we can please rise for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. I'm going to forego the usual mayor's remarks and first address concerns from the last town council meeting. The resolutions presented on the agenda were intended as discussion items with no intent to create confusion. The dollar amount added by the motion to the Board of Education resolution was meant to contribute to the conversation and encourage dialogue. Once again, I want to emphasize that there was no intent to misrepresent the purpose of these items, as the placement of the resolutions was intended to foster discussion only, as they did not follow the traditional discussion item format. To my colleagues, if you felt impacted by the presentation of those resolutions, I sincerely apologize, particularly to Councilor Fitzgerald, who read the resolution to initiate the discussion. My intent was never to create uncertainty, but to foster dialogue. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify and reaffirm my commitment to open dialogue. Our council's discussions are invaluable, and I remain dedicated to fostering collaboration and trust and service to our residents. I look forward to our discussion later in the agenda. Moving on to item 5, Councilor King.
Get used to this one. Okey-dokey. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt the agenda with one major change on my end, that we move 12A to right before 13F, so that we have our discussion items first, and then we move on to where the resolutions would be.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further changes?
Sorry.
Councilor Carey?
I move that the executive session number 17 be moved to after number 6, communications and reports from town manager.
Second.
Any discussion? It should only be a 5-minute session. So any further discussion? We have a second. If no discussion, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to item 6, communications and reports from the town manager. Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On April 23rd, 2025, the town staff held an emergency management tabletop drill. This year's drill reviewed responses to a biblical storm flooding scenario. These drills are designed to push our systems to the point of failure so staff can better understand weaknesses and continue our improvement process. Overall, the consultants that hosted the training had glowing reviews related to the performance of the staff and readiness of our community. I'm very grateful for all the staff who participated in the training and for the excellent work of all our staff to be prepared for whatever emergency the community must face. On the morning of April 22nd, 2025, the town staff discovered that the council chambers had a significant leak. The ceiling seemed to have been leaking all night, soaking the council dais, the carpet, chairs, and much of the electronics. Through further inspection, it has been determined that the leak is as a result of the roofing work that is going on. As a result, the contractor will be covering the cost of the damages and repairs to the council chambers. Unfortunately, we will not know the full electrical damage until around May 16th, when the ceiling contractor is done. From then, we will determine the best path forward. I would ask the public and the council to please keep an eye on locations for public meetings, as many of them will need to be changed to alternate locations. In that same vein, Planning and Zoning is currently considering modifications to the zoning associated with the Wheeler property. The meeting was scheduled to be held on May 13th, but due to the council chamber situation, the meeting has been postponed to May 27th. The community center cooling tower. Facility staff have been working towards getting the cooling system leak back online. With summer getting closer and the system being down, we are bringing in a temporary cooling system to help cool the building. We're planning to fund the repairs through capital non-reoccurring. In the event the repairs estimate to be more than the available funds in capital, we may be requesting contingency funds for this project. And lastly, in terms of our collector's report, if we're looking overall from the 22 grand list compared to the 2023 grand list, in 2022 we were at 99.22% collected. In 2023 we were at 99.16% collected. So we're very, very close to where we were last year, and our collector is continuing to work to match those numbers and potentially beat them. So that being said, that is my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Maniscalco, the emergency management tabletop exercise, did they find any weaks that they reported? Were there weaknesses that they said, change this, change that, repair this?
So we are in the process of doing an after-action review of all of that. We will get a report back from the consultant to that effect. I mean, as I said, we do push the scenario until the group fails, essentially. In the scenario that we had, there were a number of major dam failures. There was some significant flooding, loss of personal property, and other things in that scenario. So, you know, from my perspective, in terms of a failure, somebody losing their life, losing their home, those are all failures in that scenario. So we definitely did experience those in the drawn up drill. That being said, I think our staff did a really good job at responding appropriately to those types of situations. You know, oftentimes some of the things we look to is, are people going to be putting themselves or directing other people to go into scenarios that are actually dangerous for our first responders? And, you know, in a massive flooding scenario like that, where there's loss of life and loss of personal property, we don't want people going into that and potentially getting hurt and then having to be rescued as well. So there was a lot of situations where staff were actually saying, no, we can't go into that because that's dangerous. No, we can't go into that, that's dangerous. So from that perspective, I was really, really pleased with a lot of their responses. I will be looking for that report, and once we do get it, I'd be happy to share it with the rest of the council, though.
Thank you very much. One more follow-up question. On the nice job on the collection, but when we do the budget, don't we assume 100% of the grand list collection?
No, we don't.
We don't?
No. So typically, I think in the current budget, in the current proposed budget, don't hold me to it, I think we're at like 98, 99, somewhere between 98 and 99% collected. Typically, most communities do budget for that a little bit off, just in the event that there's, you know, maybe a large taxpayer, commercial taxpayer might go out of business or something to that effect, then we could see a significant revenue challenge.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm just challenged. What can I say? I apologize. Quick question. I was at Open Space before I came to this meeting, and the question that came up was, do we have an update on where we are settling the Griffin property?
Sure. So we've got a purchase and sale agreement worked out between ourselves and the owners, and I believe they wanted some time in order to move their personal effects out. Sometime I want to say around July was the end date of that. So you're welcome.
Any further questions? Councilor Pendleton?
Yes, I don't have any questions. I just have some comments for Mr. Maniscalco. The mayor, myself, and Councilor Lewis attended the volunteer recognition breakfast for the folks at Human Services and all the volunteers that they do and all the programs that they do. And I'd just like to compliment Human Services on all our volunteers, all the lives that they touch within our community, and all the work that they do and helping others and volunteering at the Senior Center and the Human Services Center. It's just outstanding and amazing what we heard. Over 200 volunteers, I believe, or in many, many programs, I think is what was said. It was pretty fascinating. So, and just one more thing, if I may. Just another compliment into the whole community. The South Windsor Fire Department just attended the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Service that happens once a year down in Emmitsburg, Maryland at the National Fallen Fire Academy. And there were 70 firefighters that passed away last year, and there were 70 that passed away in 2024. And about 8 of the South Windsor Fire Department members went down there to honor them over this weekend. And they did a fabulous job, and there were over 800 family members. And Connecticut lost a firefighter in the Berlin brush fire, and he was from Wethersfield, and he was honored. He was escorted by one of our firefighters as a family escort for him over the weekend. So, and he had 17 family members go down for him. So I just want to thank the fire department for all that they do and leaving their families to go honor other families of fallen firefighters. Thank you.
No, and I'd just like to add to the volunteer breakfast, there were 120 people that attended the breakfast, and I think his position is chef?
Oh, yes, the chef. The chef with the quiche.
Yes,
Yes.
3 different flavor,
Four different quiches, yeah.
quiches, so it was a fantastic job. Yeah, great job, right? Councilor,
Professional chef.
yes, yeah, he's retired too.
Yes.
Councilor Boganski, do you have anything, or are you all set?
I am all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 17, executive session. We have a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Executive session should be a few minutes. Right. Okay, thank you for your patience. And we are now moving on to item 7, public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Beth Espin.
Excuse me, before you talk, Madam, if I could, make me be easier if I show it. This is the 4-minute mark for everybody that comes up. I'll keep the time that way. Yeah, I'll keep the time that way. Everybody knows you have 1 minute left. I'll just put this up just so that I'm not rude with anybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I'm Beth Essman, 3 Church Way. I am the chair of the Board of Education. A big decision is being made tonight about the fiscal year 2026 Board of Ed budget. I am concerned about the incorrect information that was shared about, quote, Board of Ed metrics at the April 21st Town Council meeting. As this is a big decision, it must be based on data that is vetted by experts and not just compiled by a single counselor who did not discuss their created calculations with the Board of Ed or superintendent or any industry expert for that matter. Some may have left that April meeting inaccurately thinking classroom sizes are only 10 students. Healthcare payouts are limited to $250,000 annually, and reserves are overfunded rather than funded to the recommended industry standards. This reckless dissemination of information to the public and our decision makers compromises the integrity of our community. I would like to close with a reminder about our fiscal responsibility. South Windsor has spent less per pupil than any other district in our DIRG for the last 5 years. 90% of school districts in the state spend more per pupil than South Windsor. Our growing enrollment, not excessive spending, is driving our budget, and it is our duty to educate the students in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Monica Edwards.
Into the record.
Thank you.
It was, but I was told that they were not being read into the record, so. Okay, thank you.
The reason why you were told that, Mr. Edwards, is because it was not requested on the email.
Okay. Excellent. Hello? Hi, my name is Dan Edwards. I'm actually reading an email into the record that was sent to the town council on Friday from Monica Edwards at 146 Gale Lane, South Windsor. To the members of the town council, I am writing today as a long-standing resident of South Windsor for over 20 years, a dedicated educator, and an independent voter to express my support for a necessary revision to the proposed education budget. As a single parent, I have witnessed a significant rise in property taxes over recent years, an increase that has forced me to make difficult financial choices to sustain my children's well-being. I know I am not alone in this struggle. While my family, like many others, deeply values the high-quality education that has brought us to South Windsor, I urge the council to consider that many residents simply cannot absorb steep annual tax increases. It is possible to uphold the excellence of our educational system while making thoughtful and strategic investments. In particular, I believe there are areas of spending that warrant closer scrutiny. For example, the Smart Pass system has been implemented in some districts. My own workplace considered this, but was ultimately found to be cost prohibitive and of limited benefit. At my school, with fewer students to South Windsor High School, we were quoted approximately $6,000 annually. Given South Windsor High School's larger student population, that cost could reasonably exceed $12,000 per year. if they choose to purchase the program. This is an area where funds might be better allocated toward more impactful educational resources. As an educator in a neighboring district with a comparable demographic and school structure, I have not seen the same level of budgetary increase year after year that South Windsor has experienced. It is my belief, as both a parent and a professional, that we can continue to provide our children with a quality education without imposing such substantial financial burdens on families. Thank you for your time and consideration. Kind regards, Monica Edwards.
Thank you. Craig Zimmerman, Secretary of the Board of Education.
Yeah, Craig Zimmerman, 5A Amato Drive. While a member of the Board of Ed, I'm not speaking for the board tonight. Recently, a few members of the town council, a few people commenting on Facebook, and a few people speaking at a public meeting said that the Board of Education could cut over $1.3 million from its budget for the next year by just lowering the health care, special education, and pension reserve accounts. They said that these cuts would not affect our students, staff, or school system, even though the superintendent had said that while possible, these cuts would be short-sighted and fiscally irresponsible. If we were not among the fastest growing school districts in the state, with additional student and budget growth expected for the next few years, we might be able to get away with this type of delay in sound fiscal management for 1 year. However, in our circumstances, this just takes away one option when future budget cuts occur, which means the consideration of actual cuts to sports, the arts, world language, STEM, and other very important parts of the education we provide will happen even quicker. Now, if not next year, then maybe as early as 2026-27. Let me share one more fact with you before my time runs out. Last month, 3 Republican members of the Town Council and 2 Republican leaders of the Board of Ed met with the superintendent. At that meeting, a goal or target of a 3.99 overall town tax rate was given. At that time, this would have required the much-discussed $1.35 million cut to the Board of Ed. However, once BOE leadership discovered a mistake in the calculation by the Republican Town Council members, instead of reducing the large cut to our budget request, the Town Council seems ready to raise the town side of the budget, which I agree with, but leave the larger than necessary BOE cut in place, which will lead to a 3.34 overall tax rate. For some information, sticking to the earlier goal, some might say arrangement, to cut the Board of Ed budget by $575,000, giving the difference back to the school system, still meeting the goal of a 3.99 overall tax rate, would, in numbers that I vetted with the town manager this afternoon to confirm their accuracy, cost the family with a home assessed at $350,000, which would probably sell for approximately $500,000 today, only about $79 more per year, or less than 75 cents per day. I believe that many who own this type of home would gladly pay the extra $79 extra for the year if doing so preserved the fiscal health of the school district, saved vital educational services for our students, and perhaps equally important, kept them from having a much higher spike in taxes next year because this year's cut was much larger than necessary. In closing, I want to share a quote from the Republican election guide mailed out during the 2023 election. With an annual budget exceeding $85 million, the South Windsor Board of Education requires individuals who grasp the complexities of funding, educational challenges, and social issues within schools. These Republican, and I was talking about Republican women running, these Republican women candidates bring a wealth of experience and commitment, ensuring that South Windsor's educational system will continue to thrive. The entire Board of Education, including those 3 Republican women who ran for election in 2023, and today help lead the board, voted unanimously for the budget currently before the Town Council. If those candidates truly bring the experience and commitment described above, then I hope the full council, especially including its 6 Republican members, will support the budget that they helped shape. While I still believe they should fully fund the Board of Ed budget, at the very least, I hope you will follow through on the 3.99% goal, which would limit the cut to $575,000. Since most of the audience today probably won't speak tonight, if you're here to support the Board of Ed budget, if able, can you please stand and raise your hands over your head so the council knows where we all stand? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe, Dan Edwards, are you coming back up for Despina Buganski?
I am. Wear many hats today. I'm not saying you set a trend by clapping, but you set a trend by clapping. Dear members of the Town Council, Despina Buganski, 133 Cliffwood Drive, South Windsor, Connecticut. I am writing as a concerned resident of South Windsor to express my deep frustration with the ongoing pattern of budget increases and the behavior exhibited by some town and Board of Education officials at the most recent town meeting. Each year, residents are expected to shoulder larger tax burdens, yet many of us see little in the way of measurable improvements or fiscal restraint. This year's Board of Education proposal continues that troubling trend. At the very least, we expect thoughtful stewardship of our tax dollars, including a demonstrated commitment to transparency, prioritization, and accountability. More disappointing, however, was the conduct of several counselors and Board of Ed members during the recent public meeting. Rather than engaging in constructive dialogue with the Town Council, we witnessed immaturity, idle threats, and behavior that undermines public trust. The phrase "do better" has been thrown around. Perhaps it's time that directive is taken to heart by our elected representatives. It is worth reminding everyone that your duty is to represent all of South Windsor, not just a vocal few, and certainly not to promote personal or political agendas. We expect decisions based on the best interests of the entire community, supported by data, collaboration, and respect for diverse viewpoints. The people of South Windsor deserve better. I urge this council to reflect on your recent actions, reconsider the direction of this budget, and recommit to responsible leadership. We are watching, and we will hold our leaders accountable. Sincerely, Despina Buganski.
Thank you. Joe Jarvis.
Joe Jarvis, 110 Brook Street. I'm going to keep my comments really short tonight, but I just want to let you know that I am a third-generation lifelong South Windsor veteran, or South Windsor resident. I am a graduate of South Windsor High School and a current teacher at South Windsor High School. I have 4 kids in all levels of the town, one at Eli Terry, one at Timothy Edwards, one at the high school, and one that just graduated last year. So there's no one who's more invested in the South Windsor Public Schools than I am. As you know, and as was said earlier this evening, in 2024, South Windsor's per pupil spending was just $16,830. 92% of all districts in the state spend more per pupil than we do, and only 12 districts spend less. I'm here tonight just shed some light on what that per pupil spending looks like in the classroom. Although our teachers in our district are paid well, we are still paid below the average in our district, in our DIRG, in DIRG B. Our budgets are being stretched very thin. Inflation has hit the public education system just like it has hit every other industry. I teach woodshop, and right now, with 6 weeks left, we're out of wood because lumber prices have soared and our budgets haven't kept up. Budgets just need to increase. The budget increase that Dr. Carter has asked for is not some exorbitant, out of touch with reality number. I believe the percentage is well within the means of the town, and I think that It is just basically keeping up with inflation. Finances are stretched thin, and I can tell you that a cut to the budget could possibly mean a cut to quality teachers in town who could go somewhere not where necessarily they pay more because we're not in this to get rich, but to go to a district that might fund better. So the quality of lessons they can deliver in the classroom will not be directly tied to budget cuts or dollar amounts or values. So I just want to implore you to show your support for teachers, for students, for classrooms, and please pass the Board of Education budget as is without cuts. Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton?
Mr. Jarvis, I just want to say thank you for your service from one veteran to another. Thank you.
Okay, Daria Plummer?
Good evening, Mayor Delnicki, members of the Town Council. I'm Daria Plummer. I live at 235 Orchard Hill Drive. The irony is not lost on me that this is National Education Week, and it's celebrated nationally, statewide, and within our own community. Tomorrow, May 6th, is National Teacher Appreciation Day. So tomorrow morning, will our South Windsor teachers and the parents of their students learn that you, the South Windsor Town Council, has supported the Board of Education Ask in Full. This Ask in Full has been reduced 3 times before it got to you, and it's a budget that opens up the doors and puts on the lights. And I will tell you that I have been retired almost 17 years, and what Mr. Jarvis just said never happened when I taught. I did a project in May, and the wood was there. I am very sorry that this is happening at our high school. So I'm here asking you to fully fund the Board of Education budget. I think it's irrelevant that you will technically not be making the programming cuts, because that grim task is left to the Board of Education. But the technicality will not be lost on students and parents. For months now, residents, including retireds like myself and my husband, parents, teachers, we've all come before you, and vastly, the immense majority has supported the Board of Education's budget in full. And you have heard that also. But also, I have stood before you in public session, and I have thanked each of you for your hard work. And I say what I mean. Being a counselor is hard work. But South Windsor, according to the State Board of Department of Education, for the past 3 years has remained last in our DIRG in per pupil expenditure, and that's calculated by the state. Last. And I pause for that because there's music in the air, and because it's remarkable that we have a quality school system that we have being this low in our DIRG. And we have our administration and our teachers to thank for that. However, cutting the proposed budget by any amount guarantees that we're going to be last again. Not a designation I'm proud of. Not that anybody in this room should be proud of. And reducing the Board of Education's approved budget cuts into the quality of education that we are known for and we are proud of. And that does add to the value of each and every one of our homes. But leadership also listens. Leadership is both responsible and responsive to the majority of the public opinion. You saw how many people stood up tonight. I am asking you to be leaders tonight who listen and have the leadership skills that I believe each of you has within yourselves, as you did last year. You are being asked to support the Board of Education's budget as presented with no cuts. I am asking that also. It's time. We have to continue quality public education in this community. That's why people come here. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Paulin?
My name is Ray Paulin. I live at 25 Mohegan Trail in South Windsor. I'm here to speak on item 12A, the Board of Education's fiscal year 26 budget. I suspect that we are beyond swaying any counselor's votes, so I will merely fill in some gaps that might reinforce some of your votes. In her budget report, the school superintendent usually references the budget ask increases from surrounding towns, saying South Windsor's ask is comparable. So I'd like to relate what's going on in some of our east of the river neighborhoods to give you a sense of the year, a year where over the last 12 months through March, the annual rate of inflation has been 2.4%. Let me start with two caveats. First, this year's school budget increases need to be viewed in the context of recent budget increases. None of these towns have experienced South Windsor's recent increases. Second, unlike South Windsor, in the last 3 years, there is a significant difference between ask and approved in other towns. For example, last year, Enfield's Board of Ed had the same 7.2% increase ask as South Windsor's Board of Ed. Virtually all of South Windsor's ask was approved. Enfield approved none of theirs, opting to save their seniors. In the words of the Enfield mayor, what good will it do to have the best school system in the state and have no town? So here's what's going on around us. East Hartford School Superintendent proposed a 2.8% budget increase on December 5th. Ellington's Board of Ed adopted a 2.9% increase on January 29. Vernon townsfolk voted to increase their school budget by 2.8% and total budget by 2.9% on April 22nd. Enfield held a public hearing on their 5.6% education budget increase and 5.1% total budget increase asks on April 28th. Towson will be voting on a 3% increase in both their school and total budgets in referendum on May 6th. When the Connecticut legislature increased its state education funding to municipalities by $40 million, Manchester's Board of Ed reduced its budget ask increase from 4.5% to 2.1% to be voted on May 13th. One of Manchester's Board of Directors said they could do this because they had spent all of their COVID-related funds on large one-time projects, the largest of those being the lighted turf soccer field under construction, not on the Manchester High School campus, but at Charter Oak Park. Although these are not the towns to which the South Windsor's Board of Ed compares our schools, they are the towns to which South Windsor residents compare their property taxes. Like inflation, as Councilor Carey observed at the last meeting, budgets are cumulative. I prefer a more financial term. Budgets compound. South Windsor's school budget is on the brink of increasing a compounded 25% over 3 years. 3 little words spoken by, like many of you, a South Windsor High School alum a month ago still resonate in my ears. At what cost? Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Paterna?
Thank you, Mayor Delnicki, Town Council members. If I could start by saying, if you wouldn't start the clock yet, but I want to compliment the mayor tonight because she showed true leadership in explaining her statements at the beginning of the meeting. There was some confusion about what was on the agenda and whether it was going to be a discussion item or a voting item, and I think it takes real strength and true leadership to explain that to the public. So thank you for that. All right. Andrew Paterna, 301 Strawberry Lane. You know the saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail? Abraham Maslow, one of the most brilliant psychologists in the 20th century. It refers to the tendency of people to rely too heavily on a familiar tool or some similar approach and apply it indiscriminately to every problem, even when it may not be appropriate. The phrase highlights a cognitive bias where individuals default to their preferred solution regardless of any attempt to examine the specific requirements of the situation. So what are some of the flaws of this one-size-fits-all hammer approach? Well, as the South Windsor School District continues to experience enrollment growth, and I want to remind everyone again, we have the highest enrollment growth in the entire state of Connecticut. Any town that anyone mentions tonight who says their budget is lower this year than last year, maybe they had a 3% increase. Maybe they had a 2% increase. Some towns are losing students. We have a 16% increase. That is the driver of this budget. So what are some of the flaws? Well, using this one-size-fits-all approach will limit student opportunities. It will risk a deepening inequity in student opportunities and students missing chances for meaningful improvement. This is especially true, according to Maslow, in areas where we are facing fiscal or demographic changes. That is South Windsor, a perfect description of us. South Windsor's education system, highest enrollment, driving costs up, serving students well, and yet still managing the money well enough to spend the lowest number of dollars per student in our reference group. Wow, you want to talk about responsible leadership and fiscal integrity? Look at our board and look at the superintendent and her staff. South Windsor's cost per student is 92. There are 92% of all the schools in the state of Connecticut spending more per student than we are in South Windsor. Mr. Phil Koboski, a former town council colleague and a good friend, made the point that if the board is to cut something from the budget, say the foreign language program, it would be very difficult to put that program back into the school system at a later time. He said, there are always conflicting needs when trying to reintroduce something that has been cut. Mr. Koboski, as a town council member, was also a prominent member of the town council budget working group. So he's been there. He knows what this is all about. I respect his opinion. And then I want to point out to you, that night, April 7th, we had 2 students observing the meeting. And here's what they wrote in the Bobcat Prowl, the student newspaper. Regardless of their stance, everyone who attended the meeting contributed to a powerful sense of unity. The voices of teachers, parents, administrators, and residents resonated with a shared commitment to supporting both educators and the school system. A true sense of community was on display. Wow, that's coming from 2 students who observed us working that night. A common expression during the meeting, the cuts you proposed tonight, just kicking the can down the road. It might look good this year, but it will only promote and encourage the need for higher increases in the Board of Education budget for our school system. Thank you, and I am in support, full support, of the town council supporting the Board of Education budget as presented. Thank you.
Dan Edwards? For himself this time. Are you somebody else now?
I'm
Or-
me this time.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like Dan.
Dan Edwards, 131 Hilton Drive. Couple things just really on my mind today. I'm actually going to go back under the guise of transparency, but talk about the history. Tonight we've had a couple speakers who have referenced other speakers who have served on the town council, talked about kicking cans down the road. If you go back and look at historical budgets, you kind of have a good feel for why we are in the position we are today. It's a little rich to say fully fund now when I think if you go back and look in the past, I'm sure the superintendent would have loved more funding back then. Couple things. Transparency. There's a lot of people here speaking in favor of the budget, right, as presented. There's also a lot of people for the adjusted budget, the town council budget that was spoken about last week. Both opinions are valid. There's also a lot of people that didn't want to come tonight because they didn't want to sit with the traffic because of the band concert, but the people are out there. There's a lot of people that are hurting. And I think we got to make sure that we are thinking realistically. The second or third speaker tonight talked about this number that the finance committee, that he got from the finance director about this $350,000 house and, going up $79 a year. But I think what you got to consider is, according to the director of finance and the assessor, there are over 10,000 housing units in town, of which are about 25% are condo units. So I think the third speaker spoke about, 350,000 house probably go for 500. We got to look at the assessment on those things. You can't really compare somebody who's living in a condo with somebody who's living in a house that's now $1 million. They might not be able to, the people living in that $1 million house, they could still be suffering too. They might not seem like it to most people, but taxes impact everybody. And then finally, just a request, while the Board of Ed is here being discussed, I'd like to see more transparency, better website, get their meetings up on YouTube, similar to how the town is. Thank you.
Okay, John Sandberg. Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Is it John Sand?
John Sand.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So
a
that's
Sand.
why I thought, okay, thank you.
So, John Sand, 201 Miller Road. First of all, thank you for serving on the council. It's not easy to be an elected representative these days, and same with the Board of Ed members. I appreciate that you're willing to do the work. Almost 30 years ago, my wife and I moved to South Windsor simply because we wanted our kids in the South Windsor Public Schools. That's the main driver. Seems like everyone that I played Little League with and the kids and all that kind of stuff was the same thing. And so I'm encouraging you not to cut the Board of Ed budget. That's clearly why I'm here and my position is here. My wife and I are both retired, but we see the Board of Ed monies and going into the public schools as an investment. It's an investment that's reaped returns on my property values. It's an investment that's great returns for my kids who both went through the South Windsor Public Schools. So I appreciate everybody coming out to the meeting and speaking, but I'm just speaking as one parent in town that wants you to support the Board of Ed budget in full. Thank you.
Thank you. And Paul Bernstein. Paul Bernstein?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilors. Paul Bernstein, 191 Newbury Road. $200 million. That's how much the voters of South Windsor approved via referendum to build 4 new elementary schools in this town. But it's more than 4 new schools. It's our brand. There have been a number of surveys designed to identify the essence of South Windsor. What these surveys universally say is that our schools, our education system, provide our identity. In marketing, there's a concept known as USP, unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? What makes you different? It's what brands use to set themselves apart and promote themselves. This is why home buyers are offering 10, 20, and 30% more than asking price, which isn't happening in surrounding towns. So the schools are the hardware. The people are the software. That's the system, the organization, the educators, and so on, which all make it run. These experts have worked diligently to come up with a budget that's required to keep our brand the gold standard. My understanding is that this budget has been unanimously supported by the Board of Education, and yet apparently some think the budget needs trimming. I don't get it. The experts have put pen to paper, and yet some feel a need to override their expertise. So to me, it's kind of like if you're running a mechanical contracting business and the customer challenges your raw materials costs without any real experience in the industry. Or if you ran a business transporting sensitive lab equipment and someone tried to convince you there's a better way to move that equipment even though it's dangerous. Or if you're in the insurance business and you have clients and they're taking issue with the extraordinary work of your actuaries. In these situations, you as the expert would probably have a real issue with the person you're dealing with, and you'd think, hey, I'm the expert. What do they really know about my business? So I know we're not supposed to get partisan here, but frankly, this process is partisan by design. You're all sitting there because you're a member of one of the two political parties. There seems to be a narrative these days suggesting each party's values, beliefs, and ideals. And based on those, I'd bet a mortgage payment I know how the Democrats will vote on this budget. With Republicans, it seems the mandate is to cut, no matter what. I'm suggesting that we defer to the experts on what is needed and not just cut to score some political points. Let's choose to honor our crown jewel by letting the experts do their job. Thank you.
Okay, we have gone through the whole list, and we have gone past our 30 minutes. So we're going to be moving on to item 8, adoption of minutes from previous meeting.
We're not going to extend it for others to speak that may not be on the list?
They've signed up.
But I'm just asking if there's others that...
Well, they can speak at item 15. I mean, if you want to take a vote, we can take a vote.
Yeah, extend it to see if anybody else would like to speak that didn't sign up, is what I'm saying. The sign-up sheet may have come in.
There's the sign-up sheet. Well, hold on. Kathy, can you check to see if anybody else has signed up outside? Okay, no one else has signed up.
They don't have to be signed up to speak. I'm just saying offer it to others who'd like to come on.
Well, how long, Councilor Pendleton, I'm going to ask you, how long do you want to extend it? Because we know how the people feel. I understand they're here. They're making their presence known. I'm asking you, how long would you like to extend? And if you can turn on your mic, please.
Well, I'd like the opportunity for everyone to speak that's came out of their way to come here this evening, and just open it to the public. If there's anyone else to extend the meeting, extend their time frame for 10 minutes, and ask if anybody else would like to speak.
Okay, so you want to make a vote to extend it for 10 minutes?
Yes, make a motion.
Is that your motion for 10 minutes?
Yes.
For 10 minutes?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? 10 minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Councilor Rogansky? Okay, thank you. A little different. Anyone else who'd like to come forward? Ms. Snyder?
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity for a few more minutes so that some other people that didn't sign up can speak. Janice Snyder, 191 Bourbon Street, South Windsor. I just want to point out a couple of quick things. I have many years on the Board of Education and many years having served on the council, gone through the Board of Education budget with a fine-tooth comb for 14 years, and town council budgets for 10 years. And I understand that Councilor Carey was trying, was put together some information, but things are not that easy. You can't just pluck information out of a Board of Education budget and present it in a certain way. It's not, and it's not the council's authority to cut or suggest where budgets go, and I know you suggested that, Councilor Carey. But this looks to me, after many years, of the beginning of an erosion of the Board of Education. Where their request, and it's not, you're not cutting their budget, you're cutting their requested budget, because they don't have their budget yet until you approve it. A lot of work and a lot of deep, dark, devils in the details reviews have gone over that budget, and if any of you have reviewed the budget, the board budget, it's complex and it's detailed, and it's just not as easily brought forth. I think everybody else brought up a lot of great points. Our enrollment is up. Our enrollment is up. If you have 2 children in your house, and then you have 6 children, and then you have 10 children, your household budget's going up. So based on the situation where we are where we are because we're a desirable community. People in this town have overwhelmingly, year after year after year, supported education. And I'm hoping that it's not too late for the council to reconsider a requested budget reduction of the level of which you have. I get it, you want to reduce budgets, I get it. The Board of Ed is probably the easiest place for you to go. And don't start the erosion of the administrative and the fiscally responsible levels that have been put in place, at least that I know, over the past 25 years. There was a time when there was not enough health insurance money, and there was many educational personnel that became very, very sick. And because of that, the money was, there was no health care reserves. There was no special education reserves for students that move into town that require, when I was on the board, there were some students that were requiring over $100,000 a year to meet their educational costs. And that is not unusual, especially as we move forward today. So I've seen the Board of Education budget get reduced years and years ago to a point where it was difficult to deliver the education. We've risen to the point where we have an excellent education system. And believe me, the education system in this town is what sells your house. Trash pickup and recycling pickup, okay, does not sell your house in South Windsor. So keeping the investment for all of you and all of the people that live in this town, I get it becomes expensive. I get it. This is just the start of a lot of inflation that's coming our way since COVID and continuing to grow. But don't be the council that starts the erosion of a Board of Education system and a district that continually and constantly performs at the level that it does for every single child that moves into this town. And think about that. If any of you have ever had or known special education students, or those students that are at the AP level, okay, they all deserve to be educated to the level in which they need to become successful citizens. So please, As I said earlier, it's probably too late, but please, as a council, reconsider the fact of reducing the Board of Education budget at all, requested budget, or does it have to be the level in which you're targeting? Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity again. Thanks.
Anyone else who'd like to come forward? We have Mr. Mackey.
Paul Mackey, 214 Quarrybrook Drive. I wasn't going to speak. I'm just going to be quick as the Teacher Appreciation Week starts, and I'm a teacher in a nearby district that we keep talking about. I think one thing that we have heard tonight, and I can tell you firsthand, the problems that South Windsor is dealing with is not the same the problems that I'm dealing with in my own district. We have a special problem here, and we are trying to do our best to handle that. And the reason I really wanted to speak is for the high school teacher who came up here and said that he didn't get into this to get rich. You did get in this, though, to at least feel respected and be supported, and to obviously you left your own family tonight to be here on a Monday night, and anybody who's a teacher knows in May, we're just trying to get to the end and survive, so today was not an easy day, I'd imagine, but yet it was important enough for him to come out to express his own opinions of what we're going through. And the last thing that I think is really important, as somebody who has young kids in the district, and we're getting these emails from the PTO of things that we could do for our teachers. So right now, as I'm here and my wife and kids are at home making cards for their teacher, you don't get to post online that you appreciate our schools and appreciate our teachers, but then not enough to fully fund them. Our superintendent and the board, although I don't speak for the board tonight, are here to tell you the things that we think are important and what we need. So when we come here to say these things, it's not because we just think it's fun to do it. It's because we find it necessary, and whatever numbers you've come up with or anything like that, we have somebody finding this information out specifically for us, and I just think it's really, really important we keep talking about the students and the importance of how this could affect students. We also have 1,000 teachers and staff that work for us that are just as important, and it's just ironic that one of our last meetings in this room would be the time that you're going to cut this budget, as well as Teacher Appreciation Day. So for all the teachers that are watching, because I know in my district, when we are watching our board and our council in our district, we support you, we have your back, and you deserve to feel respected and supported and have all the things that every teacher deserves, especially in our district. Thank you.
Anyone else before it shuts off in 2 minutes? We got 2 minutes. So one of you fight it out.
Hi, my name is Sierra Yanaway. I am at 139 Kent Lane. I am a 26-year resident of the town of South Windsor.
Oh, you hit the mic.
As I was saying, I am a 26-year resident of the town of South Windsor. My family moved to the town when my sister was born, and as many people have said here tonight and at all of the previous times we've been discussing the proposed budget, we moved to this town because of the education system, because my family wanted to provide myself and my younger siblings with the best quality education we could. So let me tell you a little bit about my siblings. My youngest brother is a freshman at Connecticut College. He has declared his double major in government and politics and econ. My next oldest brother is a 22-year senior at the Colorado School of Mines, he will be graduating this Friday. He is completing his double major in geophysics and computer science and has managed to maintain a 4.0 while taking 22 credit hours for most of these semesters. My sister is a 26-year-old. She graduated from the University of Rochester as a mechanical engineer with a focus in sustainability. Myself, I'm 29. I completed my undergraduate at UConn with a double major in political science and human rights, and women, gender, and sexuality studies with a minor in human rights. I got my graduate degree at Southern with a focus in women and gender studies. What that is to say is all four of us coming out of the education system in the town of South Windsor are performing at and above the level of many of our peers. When I was working on my graduate degree, one of the philosophies that we explored was planning for 7 generations. Do not plan for today. Do not plan for tomorrow. Do not plan for your children. Plan for your children's 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 children. And I will admit I'm a little bit of a theater nerd, so to put it in a different way, just to wrap things up, I will quote Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton: "We are planting trees in a garden we never get to see." And so, to close, please, please, please pass the budget, invest in our children, and invest in their future as the Board of Education has requested. Thank you very much.
You still want to speak? Go ahead. Just name and address, please.
Hello. Am I close enough?
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm speaking as a South Windsor High School student. I'm a senior in South Windsor High School. And I'm also speaking as a student who has only been going to the school for about a year now.
And just need your name.
Oh, Parker Delasegas.
Can you spell your last name?
Delissessegues. 200 Andrews Way.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. I moved to this school from Valatia, New York, which is a very small town, just in a random place in New York. This school is eons better than my old one, and I'm loving the improvements from my old school that I've seen, like just comparing the two schools. South Windsor High School is so much better, and I believe that cutting their budget would only make things worse. And the amount of classes that I've gotten to take as a student for only the year that I've been here has been so great, and I love all of the teachers and all of the classes, and they wouldn't be able to do that without the budget that they have right now. I have no prepared notes. I'm just speaking from mind. I apologize. And as I am graduating this year, I would love for even my friends, I have some friends who are juniors and even some freshmen, and I would love for them to get the same quality education that I got, even for the year that I've been to. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've gone past our allotted time, extended. So, moving on to item 8, Councilor Pendleton.
Adoption of minutes of the previous meeting. Approval of the April 9th, 2025 Special Budget Working Group Special Budget Work Session minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the Special Budget Work Session of April 9th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, changes, updates? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilor Buganski?
Abstain.
Councilor Lewis?
Aye.
Councilor Valboni?
Aye.
Councilor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa? Councilor King?
Yes.
Councilor Fitzgerald? Aye. Councilor Pendleton?
Yes.
All right, we have 7 yeses, 1 abstention.
Okay. Councilor Pendleton.
I'm not sure we have the minutes in our packet for this.
Oh.
They're not.
Okay, we'll postpone that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 9, communications, liaisons, officers, boards directly responsible to the council. Anyone? Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The Patriotic Commission has sent in some crib notes for me here as I missed the meeting. Number one, the essay and poster contest for 2025 has been concluded, and the winners will be in the Memorial Day Parade on May 26th. Also presented to the Town Council on Monday, June 2nd. First place winners will read their essays to the Council. Poster contest winners will show their posters to the Council. Number two, Armed Forces Day will take place on Saturday, May 17th until dusk at Nevers Park. Fireworks at dusk, weather permitting, fingers crossed. Food trucks, veteran-owned vendors, military displays, community chorus and community band, and other activities, all free to the public except the food. Memorial Day Parade, Monday, May 26th, 10 a.m., starts at Nutmeg Road South, travels up Pleasant Valley Road, where it concludes at Veterans Memorial Park. Expect road closures to be in place by 9:30. And number four, the Memorial Day ceremony follows the parade at 11 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park, honoring military service. A military flyover is expected around 11:15 a.m. There you have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Board of Education met last week. It was a relatively uneventful meeting, but in the tradition that they've had recently where they highlight various students and student success and graduate success, they had a student there who is, I think, graduating from Harvard or at Harvard. Accepted at Harvard, so he's a senior this year. Very, very smart kid. Excelled in all of his academic classes. His guidance counselor in high school suggested that he go out of his comfort zone and take a class that wasn't in his wheelhouse, so he took an art class at the high school and struggled for a little while, but finally kind of caught on a bit. But he went on to write his essay to Harvard on the struggles that he had in taking the class and him, stepping outside his comfort zone. And he was told by the admissions reps at Harvard that one of the reasons that he stood out from others and made it into Harvard was because of that essay. So just to point out the power of the guidance counselors at the high school, and also the value of non-core classes in our students' education. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From the, just make sure I get this correct here. Social Justice Day event will be held on the 24th of May from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It'll be at the Friends Room at the South Windsor Library. The committee is currently working on the panel speakers as well as the overall program. Again, just want to give you guys the date. Social Justice Day will be held on the 24th of May, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it will be held in the Friends Room at the South Windsor Library. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else reports on committees? Councilor Boganski, you have anything, or are you all set?
No, nothing to report at this time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Any reports from committees? Okay. And moving on to item 11, consent agenda. 11A, having none. 11B, having none. 11C, having none. Moving on to item 12. No, 13A. That's right, we moved 12. 13A, Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution approving a refund batch number 17 for 6 refunds totaling $4,175.05. Be resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 6 refunds, the total of said refunds being $4,175.05, as more fully described in Exhibit A.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to 13B, Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution approving a flag flying request to fly the Public Works flag to commemorate National Public Works Week from May 19th through May 23rd, 2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves a request to fly the American Public Works Association flag from May 19th, 2025 through May 23rd, 2025, and asks the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, to have the flag raised on the flagpole at the Town Hall on Monday, May 19th, 2025, and lowered on Friday, May 23rd, 2025, in honor of National Public Works Week, as shown in Exhibit B.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 13C, Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution authorizing the town of South Windsor to enter into an agreement with the Connecticut Department of Agriculture. Whereas, effective April 23rd, 2025, the town of South Windsor has been awarded $3,400 by the Department of Agriculture for the Power of Produce Youth Education Program. Whereas the town of South Windsor recognizes the benefits of educating town youth on nutrition, agriculture, and plant science. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of South Windsor may enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Agriculture any and all documents which it deems necessary to be necessary, or appropriate for a grant of $3,400 for the farmers market. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes Michael Maniscalco, Town Manager, to sign, execute, and deliver any and all agreements and documents necessary on behalf of the Town of South Windsor and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 13D, discussion item, Board of Education, fiscal year 2025-2026, Budget Working Group, recommendations. Councilor Carey or Councilor Boganski, I'm not sure which one's taking.
Mike, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. So, as we started looking at the budget this year, you all will remember that Mike turned on here. You all remember that last year, one of the things we did was we had asked the town to stay flat. And the town did. They came in at a 0.9% budget increase. We then reviewed in detail and, minutia in some cases, the Board of Ed budget and asked a lot of questions and had multiple meetings. And we approved about and I'm doing this roughly, we approved the 7.2% increase in the Board of Ed budget that totaled approximately, $6 million some dollars. I don't have that in front of me. So this year, in October of 2024, one of the things we found out is that the state had made changes that were going to really dramatically impact South Windsor. And those changes were going to reduce our grant list. And for those, so sometimes when we talk about the grant list, and I'm trying not to be too nerdy, the grant list is the basis upon which we get the revenue for the budgets, okay? So despite economic development having added things to town, because of the negative impact from the changes made by the state, we only increased our grant list like 0.9 something percent, okay, or basically less than 1%. That was going to make it difficult. And so in October, when we had our quad board meeting, we did a couple things. We asked the town instead of raising their budget by 2%, to stay relatively flat. And we purposely use that word relatively because last year they had over 5 contracts that were negotiated that had salary, increases for people anywhere from, 3 to 3.25. So it's very hard to stay relatively flat when you have those type of contract increases. And we also showed what would happen if the Board of Ed came in at 6%, which, considering the prior year, what we had approved, more than 6%, was a legit number, and how it would impact residents if they came in at 4%. And so, our hope was to get as close to 4% from the Board of Ed as possible. And the reason for that is because townspeople are hurting. I mean, some may not be, and if you're not, that's awesome. But there are a whole bunch of people that are struggling out there. We have approximately 70 people, families that live out that routinely need our food bank in our town. I had the opportunity to volunteer to do taxes this year. We have a lot of people who don't make much money, and our taxes are a struggle, okay? And even for renters, our taxes are a struggle because their rent goes up based on our taxes. So what we really wanted to do is try and keep the taxes as low as possible, considering that not only the town, but the Board of Ed had contract negotiations with these 3 to 3.25 increases. So, we knew you weren't going to keep it at 0, and you were going to have an increase of some form. When we got the budgets, the town did come in really close to 0. They came in about 1-ish%. And as we went line by line on that budget, what we realized is we have goals as a town, right? Have good education system. We have a great system, and that is courtesy of Dr. Carter, her staff, the Board of Ed, the teachers, all of the people that work at the schools. We have done a great job. We are an A+ school district. We have done a great job, and we have great schools, and we need to maintain those schools. I personally strongly believe in education. I think it is the only way that our society advances. By the same token, we also have to take care of things like public safety, our fields, our human services division. So as we looked at these budgets, one of the things that we ended up doing, and I won't go into too much detail because we'll talk about that next, we ended up increasing the town budget because they had cut so deeply, kind of listening to our guidance, that we really felt that, and thank you very much, but we really felt we had to put some things back that had been cut. When we looked at the Board of Ed budget, we knew that the Board of Ed needed an increase, absolutely, right? How could you not? We have 120 new students expected this year. And so one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that the Board of Ed had an increase, but that we also took into consideration that we have 28,000 residents. And those residents, in many cases, are struggling. And if year by year by year we hit 4 and 4.5% increases, or 5 in some cases 6, to their taxes, they just can't do that because they're not getting those kinds of increases in their salaries. I mean, the average person maybe got a salary increase of 2.5 to maybe 3.2%. So if we come in at a 4% tax increase, what are we doing to them? And they're all our residents too. So what we are proposing is we're proposing that we increase the Board of Ed's budget. I hate reading these little numbers, so I'm going to use a round-up number. $4.3 million, okay, is what it rounds to. And that brings the Board of Ed's budget to $98,880,000. Now, that is a 4.55% increase. As I mentioned, we were hoping for 4. It does, it may not be everything, but Guys, anytime you do a budget, I spent 45 years doing budgets. Anytime you do a budget, there are things that we put in the budget. And I'm going to tell you, I have never had a director or a manager say to me, oh, I really didn't need that, but I just threw that in there. It's not the case. What you put in the budget is because you believe that's what you need. But just like on your houses, if you look at your house and you say, I really need windows and something else, I'll bet that you almost always pick one and postpone the other. Why? Because none of us are getting budgets where we don't have to somewhat manage these costs. This council believes in our education system. Even with these numbers, we are talking about an increase in the schools over 2 years, this year and last year, of $10.658 million, which is an overall increase over these 2 years of over 12%. That's not taken away. I understand all of the concerns. And Beth, I apologize. I put some numbers together because I heard so many residents scared that our classrooms were going to be overcrowded, teachers, were going to be cut, STEM was going to be removed, that I really wanted to show them that, no, that's not what's going to happen. Okay? Because really, when I take your Board of Ed budget book and I just do the math, what we're seeing is that, on average, we have like 21.3 on average classroom teachers to students, based on your forecast, based on your numbers. That we have about 10.5 in the middle school, high school. I couldn't figure out how to break those numbers apart in that budget book, so I put them together. About 10.5 teachers. Keep in mind, what? Say big picture. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, the budget is not quite as big as what the board proposed, and I know they worked very hard at it, but it's a budget that allows us to add a police officer and do some other things that we really do need to do, because while the town was really nice, we still need to do some things. I see some people looking like, why would you need to add a police officer? The last time we added a police officer to this town was 2019, and the police officers are first responders to all medical incidents. And we have grown significantly and have a lot of, senior care, adult care entities where they are first responders, and there is a real need to add a police officer. So this is what I believe is the right thing. I know you all have different opinions, so I'll stop talking.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Carey, for all the work you've done. And I know that you intended to just have full disclosure before everyone, and that's why you did the way you did, the way you went through the numbers. And I know I've talked to a number of Board of Ed members. I've talked to a number of town citizens, and I've seen lots of emails. Many who come to these meetings are very pro the Board of Ed budget. Why the folks who are against it, the increase, don't show up, I don't know that dynamic. I can't explain that to you. But what I would tell you that we all, 100% of us, agree with is we have a great school system. We're very fortunate to have someone leading us like Dr. Carter. We have a great, dedicated Board of Ed. We have teachers that are outstanding. We have students. My wife and I came here 30 years ago because of the school system. My daughter went through the school system. She now got her master's at Quinnipiac, has her own private practice for child counseling, and is doing very well with that. So that is a direct result. In fact, she saved us a year of tuition at college because of all her AP credits at South Windsor. Almost a whole year was cut off because those credits were approved by the school, by Lesley University. So we're in favor of the school system. And we're not looking at, I know no one likes this expression, but I'd rather not use the word cut. I'd rather, we're looking at an increase in the budget from last year. We just kind of shorten the increase a little bit. And that's the right way to look at it. And I think as a town, we need to rally behind and support and find the gaps. If we can find a way to get creative and do other things, I think we need to do that as a community, as a town, because as wonderful a town as this is, I know at my church we have a box in the parking lot that we put food in it and guess what? Every week it's empty. And I was curious about that, so I drove around town and looked at other food boxes around town because there's a number of them, 4 or 5 of them, and they were all empty too. In the food bank, so there are people who are hungry in town, people who are living in close to $1 million homes. When you lose your job, guess what? You can't. It's hard to go and say you're poor because you live in such a nice house, but guess what? You need a lot of money to maintain that. So it's possible to live in a wonderful, wealthy town and be struggling. All the appearances of that. So I want you to understand, or please identify with that there are many people who are struggling who perhaps would be not comfortable sharing their struggles and coming here to saying that they don't want to see increases. We need to respect that. We need to respect them. And I want you to know, again, I believe I'm speaking for all of us, that we respect the work that Dr. Carter and her staff have done, and we're grateful and appreciative for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually have a bunch of questions probably for Councilor Carey. So I know you mentioned earlier how much you are increasing the Board of Education's budget, but I was just wondering, just for the sake of the record, how much are you proposing to cut from the budget that the Board of Education approved?
Do I have that on?
It's on.
Okay. So the decrease in the increase is $1.35 million.
Okay. And then you had mentioned the slide that you had done for the last time we were here that was entitled Board of Education Key Metrics. There's not any footnotes or methodology or source data on where you came up with these numbers. So I was just wondering, who did you count as teachers to come up with the overall student-to-teacher ratio?
So for the elementary school, I counted those. There's a label on the elementary schools, and it's labeled classroom teachers.
And the overall student-to-teacher ratio?
It was teachers.
So, from the budget book?
Correct.
Yeah. So, my understanding is the definition of a teacher in the budget book follows the statutory definition of a teacher, which includes paraprofessionals, social workers, psychologists, interventionists, almost anyone but like the superintendent, the assistant superintendents, anyone who's certified and interacts with students is by definition a teacher. So it's a lot more than classroom teachers. So the label would probably be more accurate to say certified staff ratio to students is not the overall student to teacher ratio. So these numbers are, and I'm not saying that this was done intentionally or anything, but these numbers are misleading because these aren't just classroom teachers that are included in these numbers. I did some checking with the Board of Ed, and for instance, at Timothy Edwards, the teacher to student ratios are 19, 20, and 21 for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So much larger than 10.5. And those numbers are only going to grow because, now we're seeing that things are starting to level out at the elementary school, but now those kids are moving into the junior high or the middle school. I'm dating myself. And then they're going to move into the high school. And you are correct, the high school is very hard to calculate because kids are moving around all over the place.
I will tell you that in Niche, which is one of the systems that evaluates all schools, they have our numbers. I don't know where they got them from, but they do have our numbers out there at like 11 point something or 12 to 1. So I'm not sure where they're getting their numbers from, but.
Okay. And then turning to the, one of the areas where you had suggested that, the board was, could cut from or whatever was the insurance reserves. You had said that the stop loss was $250,000. I did some checking with the Board of Ed in it, and actually it's $200,000, not $250,000. And I wasn't quite clear with who, if that's $250 total for, the district, but just wanted to make it clear for the record and for everyone that that's $200,000 per person, per claimant. Now, do you know how many claimants that the Board of Ed, how many people the Board of Ed's insurance covers? It's 1,481 claimants, potential claimants. And over the last 5 years, looked at the last 5 years, and the claimants who have gone over the limit have ranged from one claimant in 1 year to 4 claimants in 1 year. So 4 claimants in 1 year at $200,000 is, almost $1 million, $800,000, if I did that right. Mm-hmm. I don't math. Mm-hmm. So, I think, I don't know, I just feel like, $11.7 million is what's in the Board of Education's budget book for healthcare. The Board of Ed and the superintendent, they have experts in risk management for healthcare for their industry. That's what they're saying that they need to have in reserves, and I think those are the people that we should be relying on for those numbers. Also, just 2 other quick things in the chart that you gave us. I know you and I had some questions about the numbers on the enrollment, the projected enrollments. So you got your numbers from page 10, and I got mine from page 3 in the budget book. In the notes on page 10, it says that doesn't include pre-K, and it doesn't include the high school transition program. So that's why the numbers that you have are a little bit lower. That's just a little bit off there because these numbers don't take into account our pre-K students, and it doesn't take into account the 18 to 24-year-olds that are in the transitional program, but also impact the budget. So I just think that we should be relying on the experts at the Board of Education and at the superintendent's office who look at these numbers every day, calculate these numbers, who, provide footnotes in their, how they go up their methodologies and things like that. And this is what they do for a living, and those are the numbers that we should be relying on. I think that cutting their ask by as drastic amount as is being proposed is going to be creating a fiscal cliff for next year and into the future. And I think it's a bad idea, and we'll be paying the price, and our students will be paying the price down the line. Thank you.
Councilor Brzezinski.
Sorry, thank you. So just a couple things to point out. Everybody seems to like to compare us to other towns. It's the only way we can make sense of things. I just point out that some of our close communities are closer to us in terms of size and scope have approved their budgets. Avon, Glastonbury, and Simsbury have approved their BOE budgets for the year going forward. Those towns have reflected increases of 4.4, 4.49, and 3.91% respectively. So below all of them, below the level of budget increase that we're thinking about. To Councilor Carey's point, again, we're looking at a year-over-year increase, 2-year increase of nearly $11 million, a 3-year increase of $18 million compounded. That's roughly 20%, which outstrips inflation by a wide margin. Let's just say that. And we don't have to go too far back in the budget to see that in fiscal year 20, there was a $0 increase approved by the sitting town council that year. And the board managed to find the money to replace it from reserve accounts. Healthcare, special education, non-lapsing, Medicaid. Interesting. Worked for them then, but it can't work for them now. And I appreciate everything Dr. Carter does, and I understand that she is good at what she does. My uncle did the same thing for many years, so I get where she's coming from. But anyone that does a budget has to build in a little bit of extra, just because there's going to be someone somewhere is going to look at that budget. I don't care if you're the Pope. You put a budget on the table, the Cardinals are going to look at your budget and probably ask questions and probably want to reduce it because it's just human nature. So I get that she's an expert, but she's also an expert at probably building in just a little bit of a cushion, understanding that there will be some pushback. And we get, some of us are getting fixated on specific line items. I know we talked about that the last council session where we were made references to the healthcare account or the I forget. Those were placeholders just as an item of discussion so that we could move the point forward. Obviously, we're going to approve a bucket of money. We can't and we're not going to tell them how to spend it. They're going to disperse that throughout their entire budget as they see fit. They may very well take $10 out of each individual line item in their budget and come up with the total number that we've approved, and no one would feel anything. So it's hard to get fixated, and again, we got to come back to the fact that I think the reason that we use them as a placeholder, whether they were items that Dr. Carter offered unsolicited as areas that could be offered up as sort of the sacrificial lamb to get the budget down to a level that we felt more comfortable with presenting to the town and in terms of the overall rate increase. Knowing that one was coming, there was no way around it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could, Councilor Bragansky, can you give those numbers again that you gave at the beginning of your talking, please? The numbers that you gave based on the other, I guess, DIRG or districts, please.
Yep. Avon approved their budget at 4.4%. Glastonbury at 4.49%. And Simsbury at 3.91%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just so that I'm clear, the reason that you gave those numbers was to suggest what? That we should be getting closer to a 4% budget?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to look at that as one measure, for sure. We do, a lot of folks that come up, and I understand why. I mean, you need, it's just human nature. You have to have something to compare against to level set yourself, right? So these are 3 comparable towns to South Windsor in terms of population, maybe the wealth base, the education system in general, and they've all approved their budgets at a point lower than what we're talking about approving going forward. So I think it's a reasonable assumption to make it. Yes, it is a comparison worth noting.
Okay, thank you. So for me, and there's a couple of things. Obviously, working with Councilor Carey as well as with Councilor Boganski on the budget committee, we didn't agree. I did not think that the budget should have been cut. I'm glad that we did raise the town side of it because I do think that we all appreciate some of the other wants, not necessarily needs, that our town does value. That being said, and I think a lot of it, and it will be personal, having a wife who is a teacher, a third grade teacher in East Hartford, I think that, and I appreciate, Mr. Mackey, what you had to say, as well as the other teacher that was here tonight, because I'll tell you, before she got that job, our budget was our budget. Our household budget was our household budget. But then she got that job, and then the school budget became our budget. All of a sudden, there's a brand new copier in the house that uses less ink. There's Amazon paper all the time. And I'm like, babe, what is this? And she's like, I don't have enough money for my students, and so we have to rethink our household budget. What am I gonna do? I'm not sleeping with any of y'all. So I said, okay. It's off the record. Cut that out. Audio. Cut that out. Thank you. But I say that to say that I think sometimes we get caught up in what we don't know. And I've said it before. You know, I only know what I know, and I can only talk about what I know from my own experience unless we talk to others. And feeling that pinch and knowing what those other teachers feel and go through, I know for a fact because all these teachers, they have to go to other schools first, and then they finally choose a school, so on and so forth. And it isn't always about the money. We do have a phenomenal school system here. And so I just wanted to say that in terms of sometimes, to Councilor Lewis's point earlier in regards to our household budget, and even Councilor Carey's point in regards to the windows, you know what? We have to make a way. I have to find a way to say, okay, babe, if that's what you need to do in order to be successful with our future, then we'll have to figure something else out. Maybe we're not eating pizza this weekend. I don't know. But that is the decisions that every one of our teachers, unfortunately, is forced to make because they have people that aren't teachers making decisions and saying, you really don't need. And I bet you if we had all those teachers here, and we know just from other experiences, the resident mentioned Enfield. Enfield learned a huge mistake. They learned a huge lesson. They said, no, everything's too high, too much. Cut their whole budget. They cut their middle school programs. They cut their sports. They cut everything. And then somebody this year said, we might have made a mistake on that because now the kids have nothing to do. The board is in chaos up there. And so I don't want to see us do that. You know, I'm not down with cutting anything, whether it's the STEM programs that's come up or any of our sports programs or anything like that. And I don't think that we have to. A situation arose in which we had some finances, again, making it personal. And my wife said, hey, her and my daughter were going to Philadelphia, and Sophia graduated, as many of you know, and is doing her thing. She had the AP classes by the grace of God. And so, you know, she got some scholarship money. Awesome. Doing her thing up at the University of Southern Maine. She just sent me a text the other day saying, Dad, I got a paid internship. I'm able to do it remotely. I said, good, get a job, pay some rent. Awesome. But if it wasn't due to the fact of the education and the support that she got from our school system, that she might not have been able to do that. I digress for a moment, only because my wife and her are supposed to go traveling, and she said, honey, based on budget, I don't think that we can. And I said, is this important to you? Yes. It's a baby shower. I said, okay. We'll figure it out. At a certain point, as elected officials, we have to figure it out. We can't sacrifice, and the young lady that spoke earlier, for today, what could possibly be, at least for my wife, it's her sister-in-law, going to a baby shower for the future. That's something she's not going to be able to get back. We make a decision to cut. That's something that we can't get back when a student says, I can't do X, Y, or Z. I give a round of applause in regards to, even when we had a decision to make, the school board had a decision to make. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but they had to change their busing because we don't have enough bus drivers. And so what did they do? Now some parents have to get up at the crack of dawn to get your students to go to school. So that they thought ahead and said, what can we do so that we don't lose what we want to give our students so that they're comfortable and they can still produce in class? Again, they were thinking ahead. Dr. Carter and her team were thinking ahead. Something that happened, and this is to Councilor Lewis's point. I don't know how many people remember COVID-19. But at that particular time, I remember, and it really hurt, watching social media and all those things that people like to chirp on about, and this is before we knew what COVID-19 was. Past is prologue. People need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I don't understand why people are looking for a handout. Why is the town and the community is going to be da-da-da-da-da-da-da until they lost their job? And I will tell you, because Roman and Sophia were both in the school, and I said, boy, because he's at that time, I don't know, 13, whatever it was, 2-3 years ago, stop eating. But what did the school board do? They said, everyone can come and get breakfast and lunch. And it's amazing to me, until you go through it. When I first went, the first day, I wasn't the only car, but I was the only car. And I was like, whatever, I'm the oldest of 7, let me get that free food. But I knew we already paid for it because it came out the budget, right? That's the other thing people forgot. It was already paid for. Man, when COVID-19 hit and people have a short memory, those cars were around the block 2-3 times over. And those volunteers were handing out the breakfast. And at one point, they even said, you know what? If you have a student in your house, we will feed them. That is what South Windsor does. We figure it out. We trust the people that say, this is what we need to do because we're thinking forward, and we figure it out. We don't say, well, you should figure it out on your own. That is not the town that I live in. We say we're going to come together, and yes, while I understand, I might even disagree, but you know what? We're in this together. If your house is on fire, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, you probably should have spent that money on the fire alarm. No. I'm coming with the buckets of water, I'm making the phone calls, and I'm coming to help support you, and we will figure it out together. One of the things that I think is missed is on page 2 of your booklet. Dr. Carter and her team were very specific. It's important to note that the superintendent's budget reflects a series of reductions made prior to presenting the budget to the Board of Education and Town Council. Had all staffing and program requests been funded, and at no cost avoidance measures implemented, the proposed budget increase would have been 10.31%. So she already knew the fire she was about to walk into. So she said, you know what? Let's dial it back, go back, no different than Mr. Maniscalco did with his team. And the actual proposed budget reflects $4.1 million in reductions that were made proactively. She made them thinking forward about what she was going to have to get into, but at the same time recognizing we still have to do what I'm paid to do in this job. And further explanations of the budget reductions will be viewed, blah, 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 and we have those things. From a number perspective, cutting down, 1.35, which again I'm not in agreement with, I would like to know, and I don't think any of us would really have the answer, is how, and I started with this. How will it affect the teachers? Most of us are in the business world. Councilor Carey, you said it on multiple occasions. There is a difference between the business world, quote unquote, and the municipality. Can you imagine a world in which you showed up to your job at Hartford, whatever, we're insurance capital of the world. And you had to show up with your own paper. You had to show up with your own pens. You had to show up with your own markers. There would be a revolt. The unions would sue, but yet that's what we're asking and continue to ask, in this particular case, our teachers to do. The ones especially that work with our special needs students. That is not my gift. That is not my calling. I love my kids. But those teachers that are in there that look at every one of those kids as if they were their own, we're saying, 1.35 isn't really going to hurt you too much. They're already hurting. The reason that I asked Councilor Boganski why he brought up those numbers from a percentage standpoint is if, I want to make sure I phrase this right, what is the end goal in regards to the budget cut? Is it that it is at a certain percent? So say, for example, if it was at under 4%, then we would be fine with that? Like if the school budget cut was at 4% or the town budget overall was under 4 or whatever, would that be okay? Just from a point of reference, what's the end game?
Councilor Carey, go ahead.
I can't.
Oh, sorry.
The mic's go off. Okay. So I think, as I mentioned to you before, that because if I look at you, then people can't hear me, so I'll try and not look at you. But that's not, it's hard for me to not look at whoever asks the question. Yep. So when we started this process, what we wanted to do, it was to try and keep, at the end of the day, the taxes to as low as we could, taking into consideration the situation that residents have faced. And as I said, we know that inflation is between 2.8 and 3.2. I don't want to argue about the number. You can make it anywhere in that range. We know the contracts went up 3.25%. And so we knew that, you're going to be up above 3 overall, right? And so what we're trying to do is see what could we do to stay, as far down as possible without, causing too much pain. And, and as you know, because we sat for days, on hours and hours on end, going line by line, there were cuts in the town budget that we're going to talk about next. I won't go through that. So we ended up adding some things, and then, we looked at the school budget, and I agree that you did not agree, and I think that there's opportunity there. Now, in a world where you could do whatever you wanted, would you fund the full budget? If cost was no matter, yeah. But do I think that we should try and put increase of taxes of, I don't know, what would it be if we funded the whole thing, 4.47 on our residents who we know are struggling, when we know that we have, 50, 70 families living out of our food bank, when I'm telling you, looking at these taxes that I did, I was like, oh my gosh, these poor people. Now, there's some people that are doing great, but there's other people, they're struggling. And,
not to cut you off, I just want to know from an end game standpoint, you just said, thank you, Madam Mayor, what was it, 4.47? So, because I do think that at times, you might have to compromise and say, okay, what is the least evil, so to speak? We've been going back and forth as a town. I'm sure that you guys have in your different caucuses, and even with what Councilor Boganski said. So I'm wondering if overall, with the different changes, even if there was a slight cut, if it was under 4%, you would be amenable to that.
Actually, no. I think that, and the reason I wouldn't be is, last year we raised taxes 3.9%.
Okay.
And we did, because we went line by line and with the school, and we knew that they had things they had to put in. The associate principal, or I know I might say that wrong, but an extra vice principal at this school. There were programs they were trying to get through. So if you remember, we decreased their increase, okay, and it was a 6-point-some increase by $77,000. I will share that we did get a lot of feedback, negative feedback on that $77,000. And then I will also share that at the end of the year, that $77,000, that there was like over $200,000 that was not spent in the way it was budgeted, and so that 77, they were able to recoup that and fix the pension. They took it from the pension. So, but I mean, so this year, I think that we can't keep doing that. If we're not getting raises above 3%, how can you ask the residents to pay 4%?
And I'm glad that you put it that way. So people are not getting raises, but I go back to something that I said earlier, but I'm still paying for a copier and ink and paper, and no, she hasn't gotten a raise. So how do you justify or equate that where she hasn't, and yet we're still coming out of a pocket? Because we're both, quote unquote, hurting.
I don't know what school district isn't giving raises. I mean, in South.
Well, union contracts, yes, of course. But what I'm suggesting is they're still coming out of their pockets because they're not able to. I haven't met a teacher yet, and I used to be a substitute, and I give them all the credit in the world.
I do too.
Yeah. So they're coming out of their pockets. You know, it's not something that, unfortunately, you know. And so I'm just, again, I'm very.
I understand where you're coming from. I also think that a 4.55% increase, which is $4.3 million increase, which, again, going back, over the last 2 years, between last year and this year, we are talking about, let me get the numbers right, we are talking about a $10.6 million increase. That's 12.08% over those 2 years. While it's not perfect, I absolutely think that it's doable. And what it does is it will help our residents who are feeling challenged. And, you know, I know they don't necessarily always come to these meetings, but, you know, I have literally been stopped in LL Bean and said, are you going to be able to hold the line on taxes? You know, I've had people stop me in grocery stores. And my first question is, they say, are you a town councilor? I say, why? Are you mad at me too? But, you know, a lot of them are saying, you know, this cannot continue.
Okay. And then I'll leave it at this for my other counselors. Again, I don't believe that, and the reason I asked you and Councilor Begancy, because we all worked together, but then with new information, you make new decisions. And so I really wanted to get at what is the percentage breaking point from a budget, again, standpoint. I hate to keep getting personal, but it is very personal when my wife, who does our books, says, Stephen, you have to make this much a week for us to do this. We have automatic payments, bill payments coming out for this. We have that. We have this other thing. So in my mind, I know, regardless of what else is going on in my life, I have to make this amount of money on a per weekly basis. She has me counting calories now. But that's how serious it is. That being said, what is the number, what is the percentage that you could say from a town budget perspective? Because we did hear, and I appreciate Mr. Zimmerman talking about it earlier, maybe it is only $79 or $76 a year, but if we know from the email that we all received that $576,000, I hate to introduce this negative, but it gets to my point. Along with adding, which we did agree to do, $394,000 to the town would only result in a 3.99% tax increase. So it's not $1,000,035, it's 500, and let's just call it 77,000 cut. Would keep us under 4%. I'm asking you, and Councilor Beganski, since we all work together, yes, is that a number Yep.
Go ahead, Councilor Baginski.
Thank you. I don't want to get fixated on a specific number. I want to keep the number as low as possible and fund the two separate budgets the best level that we're able to. I think getting fixated on a number just backs everyone into a corner that's impossible to get out of.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna add a little bit more context to it and say, one of the reasons that we're trying to keep the number so low, I'm going to paraphrase Saud.
Yep.
He stood in front of us at the meeting and said the number one issue he has with residents he hears from all the time is cost of living in South Windsor. And if we're not careful, we are going to price some of our families out of town. And then that's just going to create the snowball effect, because that's a house that's going to go on the market. It's going to get sold to a family. They're going to have 2 or 3 kids in school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The next thing you know, the 120 kids that they're planning is going to be 250 kids. And, we're going to be dealing with a massive budget increase. And, I think someone pointed it out earlier in the commentary, said, or maybe they were talking to the mayor of Enfield, I guess they paraphrased him, saying, what's the point of having a great education system if you don't have a town? And at some point, we've got to control. Yes, we want to keep everything at the level we have it now, but we've got to do it with fiscal responsibility so that we don't create this kind of void where only the super wealthy are going to be able to live here, because we've literally priced ourselves included, out of town, candidly. So
I appreciate that. So I'll leave it here then. So going forward, Board of Ed, I need to see the 10.31 increase. So that way we can pare it back to where Dr. Carter would have liked it to be. Because her doing her job, unfortunately, has now put us in a situation where, and I understand where we're coming from, now we're saying, okay, yeah, you did, but now we need to cut it back even more. So you know what? Ask for the sun, moon, and the stars, put it out there, and then maybe we'll get to the point where all of us can be agreeable, where it says, okay, at least we did some kind of cut. And then she'll get the one thing that she says every time she comes before us that she doesn't want, which is to lie to us. Because that's essentially what she's going to end up doing. She's going to say, okay, this is what we need, just so she can get to a different number. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Before I call on Councilor Fitzgerald, you keep using the word cut.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, we don't have a budget yet.
Right.
We don't have a Board of Ed budget. We don't have a town government budget. It's a reduce of the ask. It's not cutting. You're not cutting anything. They're still getting an increase of 4.55%.
Okay, reduce the ask. Got it.
So this notion being out there that your Republican counselors are looking to cut the budget is a little
disingenuous.
Yeah.
Yep, reduce the ask. My apologies.
And it's semantics.
No,
I get it.
No, thank you.
But if you're cutting the budget, if we already had the budget,
nope.
Okay, we're cutting the budget, but we're reducing the ask.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a couple of additional comments. I couldn't put my hands on the budget presentation that Dr. Carter made to us way back when, but Councilor Baginski discussed Avon, Glastonbury, and Simsbury, and they're coming up with their increases for their boards of education. And the one thing that I kind of was hoping to, oh, thank you. All right, just give me 1 second. I think, pretty sure it's in here. She's
page 17.
Page 17. Nope, that's not the one. Sorry. while I'm looking for this, I'm going to try and multitask here. One of my other points that I wanted to make is, we're sitting here in this room in Alt 6 in TE, which is normally the home of the Board of Education, where they have their meetings. Our enrollment is exploding in this town. And this room is going to be kind of a, not a victim, but will be a casualty of that increase, I think, next year or in 2 years, when the Board of Ed moves their meetings to, I think, the high school annex, so that this can be turned into 2 classrooms, because this building is going to be bursting at the seams. So, we have a huge enrollment problem here. And, we talk about the residents are hurting, Well, the kids in these towns are residents too. And they deserve to have the best education that we can give them. And I can't find what I'm looking for. So I just, I think we need to keep the kids in mind. And, I think the board has done, oh, here we go. Found it. Sorry. So, thank you. So, in Simsbury, their student count has gone up by 72 students. Avon's went down by 76, and Glastonbury's went down by 192. And ours has gone up, it's going up 247, somewhere thereabouts?
For this year, it's 120.
Okay, 120. So, still, Glastonbury went down 192, Avon went down 76, Simsbury came up 72. There's no other town in the state that comes close to the explosion in enrollment that we've had. That's what's driving this budget, and that's what's driving these numbers. The Board of Ed and the superintendent, they're not asking for bells and whistles. They're not asking to add programs. The budget that they sent to us was a budget of, treading water. It wasn't making advances on anything. So, I would rather, let them tread water than, throw them a stone and make them tread water with a stone in their hands. So I just think that they're the ones that know what they need and what their budget is. And, I understand that people in town are hurting. Those people also include our students. And there you go. I'm an almost lifelong resident in this town. I, was blessed to go to the schools here. My kids, I have a junior in high school now. I have one that graduated last year and is in college and doing great. And if I have to pay some more in my taxes to ensure that future generations of our children get the same quality education that I got and my kids got and, you got and you got and you got, I'm willing to do that, and I know that I'm, making that statement for other people, but I think when it comes down to it, I think that, to quote the late, great Whitney Houston, I believe that children are our future, and we have to fund their education, and I think the Board of Ed has sent us a very responsible budget, and we should give them what they've asked for. Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton?
Thank you. I sat quietly and I was listening to everybody speak. First and foremost, I want to apologize. I want to apologize to the Board of Ed for accepting the budget that was presented by the staff of Dr. Carter and herself. I want to thank Dr. Carter for cutting the budget prior to presenting it to you. And I want to thank you for accepting the budget that was presented. I intend to vote no for this cut, just to let you know ahead of time. But I have a question. I also apologize to the teachers. Teacher Appreciation Week and Teacher Appreciation Day. And we're sitting in the Board of Ed meeting room. Logic and common sense. I don't know where it is, folks. I don't know. This paper that I have before me that was given to us at the last meeting, misinformation. None of these numbers, I believe, are correct anymore. Is that right? I mean, because you really didn't reference them? They're not, or they are? They are or not?
I think there's multiple pages of this.
I'm talking about the Board of Education budget.
Yeah, the Board
That's
of
what we're in
Education
right now.
budget on page 4 is correct.
And also the student ratio and the student information and enrollment and everything else, all of that is correct?
The enrollment number is correct, but does not include POP or the transition staff, yes.
Okay, so some of the information is being withheld or not put out there, not full information. I think what bothers me the most is Dr. Carter and her staff have been doing this for years. Common sense, they know what the enrollment is going to be. They know that they have to adapt the school in this rooms that we're sitting in right now for the enrollment. We know that we were warned many years ago about the enrollment. This isn't something new, folks. It's been going on for 5-6 years, I suppose. Dr. Carter's done a great job with the reduction. The Board of Ed members have sat there for years, and they know what the enrollment is. They know what it's going to take to keep the lights on. Common sense. I rely on them to be the experts. I rely on them to do their job, to look at the line items, to talk to Dr. Carter. That's not my forte. You guys can have that, thank you. No, I don't want that. You guys did a great job, though. You guys do a good job. What bothers me the most, I think, is 5 people are sitting here determining the future of South Windsor. Some of the information that we received was not accurate. Some of the information that we heard this evening, or the comments from Chair Essman on the inaccuracy of the information that's out there. So, and to learn that 5 council members did not even speak with the Board of Ed members. Very disturbing to me. There was no caucus amongst the Board of Ed members. I asked that at the last meeting with the council and the Board of Ed members. I don't know when you guys lost your professionalism and they became the experts. I don't know when that happened. I have no idea. Maybe at that secret meeting, that lack of transparency. I have no clue when that happened. But I know that you guys have done this a long time. I trust the Board of Ed to do the right thing for our students and our residents within this community. And our students are our residents, as was mentioned before. What bothers me the most is 5 people can sit here this evening and make a decision for this whole community. I've heard time after time. I've said it myself. People are hurting. Absolutely. I've said it myself while sitting on this council. But this isn't something new. This has been happening for 5 years, and it's only going to increase with enrollment over the years going forward. So don't act shocked next year when this happens again. It happened last year. It's going to happen again next year. So come up with plans. Come up with a better way of doing things. Well, and I'm going to say it, I'm not sure what you're worried about. I'm not sure. $75 a year, is it? I'm not sure if that number is correct. Is it worth giving our children and the Board of Education what we know and they deserve for $75? $75 a year, right? Is that what was stated? $75. How many of y'all are going to spend that tomorrow? I don't know. How many coffees going to buy this week? I'm sorry. Common sense and logic, people. $75 a year. I'm sorry. I apologize that we're even sitting here discussing this over $75. A pair of sneakers cost more than that. But an education of $75. I'm sorry. And I don't accept what was presented with these numbers here from the budget working group on the Board of Education budget piece. That's all I have to say.
Ms. Perry. The $75, I guess it's based on a $350,000 assessment, right?
That's correct. It's not 75, it's 136.
Because I'm looking at the last page that you have here from your presentation. 403 a year if the budget, with the budget working group, is the approximately 3.34%. The increase is at 403 per year. Using the proposed BOE budget and the working group's town budget, the increase is 4.47%, with the home assessed at 539.
539 minus 430 minus 539.
So 136 would be the increase per year. And that's with a 3.99%.
No, that's.
Oh.
So if the Board of Ed budget was accepted in full, that's a 4.47% increase on people's taxes, which for a home that's assessed at $350,000, that would be $539 versus 403, which is $136. Difference. I'm not sure where the 75 is coming from. I just didn't feel like arguing.
Because with with no reduction at all, with the 4.47%, your mill rate would be 36 even. With the budget working groups, I know minus Councilor King, the mill rate would be 35.61, with an increase of 3.34%.
So the email that was sent, if the overall tax rate was 3.34%, taxes would increase by $403. If the overall tax increase was 3.99, taxes would increase by $482. That's a $79 difference. That's where the $79 is coming from.
Just so you know, I didn't get that email, so that's an example of you have an email. So I'm just using the full budget and then the reduced budget.
Just to be clear, I apologize, Madam Mayor. We did all receive this email on May 2nd. We received an email May 2nd saying exactly what she just said minus the change.
I apologize. I wasn't until yesterday at 7 o'clock.
Got it.
I was going to ask, any further discussion? Councilor Lewis.
Just a quick point. It's wonderful to minimize, I've been in business for a while, getting older, and it's very standard practice to minimize the cost and maximize the benefit. But we're not talking about $75 or $79. We're talking about $400 to $500 increase on taxes per person. It's great to make it down to just 75 cents a day, but guess what? That all adds up to a year, and that's what we have to pay out of our pockets. So if we're going to compare apples to apples, then let's be fair and let's call it what it is. There's been what I view a fair amount of attack to Councilor Carey for having inaccurate numbers when she was working with a team and she's doing the best she could. And there's different ways of always getting statistics and how you present it to support whatever way you want, because you can do that with numbers. All we're trying to do is to try and do what's best for the town. We're on the same team. We agree with you. We have a great school.
No, we're not on the same team. I'm sorry.
You're right, because we wouldn't be in this if it weren't for you 5 years ago. Thank you.
A point of order. Decorum. Thank you. Sir, I will not accept a personal attack. Thank you very much. I expected a verbal apology publicly.
I will publicly apologize right now. I was wrong to say that. I caught up in the moment. I'm not as experienced as I ought to be. My humble apologies.
Any further discussion? Councilor Baganski, are you All set on the discussion item that we were on?
No, I'm good. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on to 13E, discussion item, general government budget, fiscal year 2025, 2026, budget working group recommendations.
I have to figure out how to turn it on. You just did. Did I? Is it on? It was.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Counselor?
can I ask a quick question? Didn't we move 12A after 13D?
It's after 13E.
Oh, E. Oh, I'm sorry. I put it in the wrong spot. My
Yep,
bad.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me see if I can get this to go up. Does it come up? Oh, yeah, it's coming up. All right, thank you. Okay. Well, Madam Mayor, may I speak?
Oh, yeah, I just got to move.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so South Windsor Town operating budget. Councilor Boganski, Councilor King, and I were on the budget working group. While we didn't 100% agree on the Board of Ed, we did 100% agree on the South Windsor Town operating budget. One, want to commend the town. You know, they really didn't expect to have to stay at relatively flat, especially when they had union contracts, 5 different union contracts, all going through with this between 3 and 3.25% increase. I want to thank them for the hard work they did and for the reaches that they made to try and get relatively flat. I know that was a hardship. So when we took a look at the town manager's proposed budget, we made a couple changes and we actually increased their budget. And so one of the things that we agreed to, and you'll see it here, is the addition of 1 police officer with benefits. This number, since a police officer who's single has 1 benefit level and a police officer that has a family has another, this is an average number. That's not anybody's salary. That's salary plus benefit load. If you it's halfway between the family and the single. So we did add 1 police officer with benefits. We added officer training, equipment, and uniforms that goes to that officer. In the Parks Department, they had eliminated 3 part-time people that cut the lawns in the summertime. Unless we have a very dry summer, those lawns are going to grow. Our concern was those lawns are used by all kinds of sports teams and, different activities, and that, if the lawns start getting too high and the kids are starting to trip, it would not be a good situation. So we did put back the 3 part-time employees that cut the lawns. Because, even though maybe we could make it extra time, we really felt that was probably not the right thing for the town. But we appreciate the attempt. Human Services took this very seriously. There are grants that they make to other towns because they provide services that we don't provide. And these grants are little. We have been making them for years, about $5,000 per grant. One example is the Center for Abused Women and Children. And so to get the budget flat, they reduced their grant from $5,000 to $2,000. We did put that money back in. I think that if South Windsor residents are sent to these entities, we need to, give them the $5,000 versus the $2,000. So that's at $12,000. Library, there are residents complaining that digital use in the library, they weren't getting to be able to read their books, etc. A lot of people, we have very heavy usage of our digital. So we talked to the library director, and he told us that, if we could increase the budget by about $7,500, it would be more of a one-time thing, and it should alleviate some of the waits that people are experiencing for digital products. And then part-time permanent inspector, we have a lot of economic development activity that is coming up this year, and getting things inspected on time. There was a request to have a part-timer to do some inspections so that we could speed the process and be able to get permits done, et cetera. So we put that back in. This salary relocation contingency is a number of things that are involved with contracts. We have people retiring, and when they retire, if they never took their sick time, they get paid out and things like that. So that's what that number is. So the overall increase in the town budget was $394,930. As I said, there were other things we saw, but we didn't put them in. But we really felt that it was the right thing to do for the town to put this money back in. And so the total town budget came to $41,365,000. This is over the 24-25 budget. Does come out to be a 3% increase. Last year, their increase was 0.9, as I mentioned earlier. And I support the increases in working the town council budget working groups recommendations on this.
Any discussion? Councilor King?
I just want to say that as part of the working group, we did all discuss it and we did all agree that that these changes needed to happen, that the money needed to go back in. We were very thankful that Mr. Maniscalco had his team, really go to that 0% as flat as most of them could. But after having several discussions and meetings, we felt, again, as Councilor Curry said, that it was the right thing to do. So that's why we put those numbers back in the budget. And so I agree with this as well.
Any other discussion? Councilor Baginski.
Thank you. I'm just going to echo those sentiments as we went through the town budget, which had been running basically on fumes recently. It was due for some additional funds. Someone made, just a point out. Someone made the comment earlier that trash pickup doesn't make the town desirable, and I would agree with that. But some of the other things that do fall under the town budget do make the town desirable. And one of those is the safety element. To Councilor Carey's point, we haven't added an additional officer since 2019. I'm sure the town has. I'm not sure what the population change is in 6 years, but I'm sure it's enough to justify at least one officer. Obviously, our Parks and Recreation Department and also some of the services that we provide, the community center, and anything else. So those are all things that, in addition to the education system, make the town the full package. So yeah, it was time and to give a little bit back to the town budget, which had been running so thin over the last a couple of years. So yeah, I'm also in support of it.
Any other councilors for discussion? Okay. Moving on to 12A, Councilor Carey.
Okay. Be it resolution adopting the Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2025-2026. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby adopts the Board of Education budget with expenditures totaling $98,880,328 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025, and terminating on June 30th, 2026, a copy of which is posted in the town clerk's office.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion? No discussion? I know, but you've discussed, if you want to reiterate or...
Yeah, you know, again, I understand that the Board of Ed did a great job. Thank you very much. And that, you know, Dr. Carter always does a great job. But looking at the budget and looking at the town and then looking at the budget over a 2-year period, I do think that, you know, despite over 2 years we've had 200, we expected 120 students last year, we got 100, so we've had 220 some students, that the increases of 12.08% over you know, the budget 2 years ago and $10,658 is a sizable increase. And, you know, it will mean that something will have to get managed. Board of Ed is really good at this, and I'm sure that they will find a way to manage this without, I would hope, negatively impacting any of our teachers or support staff or administrative staff or students.
Final thought.
Any discussion? Councilor King? Or you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the only final thought that I would give, just for the record, is if we do have to reduce the ask, that I would like to see, instead of the 1.35, that if we just did again a $576,000 cut, especially in line with what we are probably going to approve from a town budget standpoint, that will get us to an overall increase of only 3.99%. I would like to see that as opposed to the 1.35. I would rather reduce the ask to 576,000. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are you making an amendment?
No. This for discussion purposes only. However, yes, okay, all right. Lord, edit that out. Yes, and I would like to make a friendly amendment to the resolution that instead of the 1.35 reduction in the ask, that we only reduce by $576,000. So if I could have a second on that, that would be awesome. There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, as Mr. Town Attorney earns his his keep, we have to vote on the friendly amendment first, correct? Just want to make sure. Yep, you're on.
Yeah, you got to vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
I think you should check with the finance director as to what the actual dollar amount is. I think you should phrase it in the in the amount that you're looking to pass. So Councilor Carey proposed a $98,880,328 budget. You're proposing a budget number that I'm trying to calculate, and I'm looking at the finance director to see what that actual number is.
So that number would be $99,654,328.
So that would be the amendment that you're being asked, Madam Mayor. You should ask to vote on that amendment first.
So I'll rephrase. The friendly amendment would be for $99,654,328 as opposed to the other. Thank you.
I still second that.
Okay, we had a motion and a second on the amendment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amended resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Buganski?
Nay.
Counselor Lewis?
Nay.
Counselor Balboni?
Nay.
Counselor Carey? Mayor Delnicki?
No.
Counselor King?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Counselor Pendleton?
Yes.
5 noes, 3 yeses.
Amendment fails. Any further discussion on the resolution as presented at $98,880,328? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Buganski?
Aye.
Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Counselor Balboni?
Aye.
Counselor Carey? Mayor Delnicki?
Yes.
Counselor King?
No.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
No.
Counselor Pendleton?
Absolutely not.
All right, 3 noes, 5 yeses.
Okay. Motion passes. Moving on to 13B.
No.
13B.
It'd be 13F.
13F.
Oh, wrong sheet. Okay, 13F, Counselor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution adopting the general government budget for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Okay, you may continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby adopts a general government budget, including debt service, with expenditures totaling $55,964,499 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025, and terminating on June 30th, 2026, a copy of which is posted in the town clerk's office.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Can you, Counselor Baganski?
Just for the sake of good order, can we split out the general government budget and the debt service portion of that?
Sure.
Unless it's down below and I missed it.
Is it down below, Ms. Perry, or is?
No, it's not. No,
Okay.
no, it's not.
Okay.
So the town operations is $41,365,577. And total debt service is $14,598,922.
Thank you.
For a total of $55,964,499. Okay. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Who was our second?
I was.
Oh, okay. And any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 13G, Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to approve the Recreation Special Fund for fiscal year 2025-2026. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby adopts a budget for the Recreation Special Revenue Fund with expenditures totaling $3,435,000, I did that wrong. $3,435,565 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025, and terminating on June 30th, 2026, a copy of which is posted in the town clerk's office.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on 13G?
Thank you. Just for the record, Mr. Maniscalco, you can just, for our residents, just say what exactly that Recreation Special Revenue Fund is and why we did it that way, please. Thank you.
So the town of South Windsor has a number of special revenue funds. Particularly, our largest is the Parks and Recreation one. Essentially, that's made up of fees collected from programs that are then those fees are then turned around into either the program that residents signed up for, or into other programs that the town benefits from.
That's it? You're all set?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, 13H, Councilor Balboni. And Councilor Lewis, if you can turn off your mic, please.
Thank you.
These numbers are all right here. Resolution setting the tax rate for fiscal year 2025-2026. Be it resolved that the tax rate of 35.61 mils be levied on the real estate and personal property grand list and 32.46 mils on the motor vehicle grand list of October 1st, 2024, based upon total revenues, excluding non-tax revenues of $24,557,232, which includes an appropriation from fund balance in the amount of $0 and an appropriation from the Tax Stabilization Fund in the amount of $2,500,000 to finance total expenditures of $158,276,686, made up of a Board of Education budget of $98,880,328, capital projects budget of $3,431,859, and a general government budget of $55,964,499, all of which have been adopted by the South Windsor Town Council for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025, and terminating on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor Balboni? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Buganski.
Aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Counselor Balboni.
Aye.
Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki.
Yes.
Counselor King.
No.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
No.
Counselor Pendleton.
No.
5 yeses, 3 noes.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 13I. Deputy Mayor is not here. Councilor Carey?
Resolution appointing a rate maker for fiscal year 2025-2026. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Maniscalco, Town Manager, as rate maker for fiscal year 2025-2026, and postpones consideration of this motion until the Town Council's next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 14, passage of an ordinance, having none. Moving on to item 15, public input for any matter. Public input for any other matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item over which the council has jurisdiction. The speakers shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to come forward at this time for any matter? Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay. Seeing none. Moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing that has come up recently, I was not aware of the retired officer that had passed away. However, it still speaks to the point that I was going to make in regards to unfortunate deaths or deaths that are even known about or that are occurring, especially as it relates to our town and our human services department. About a year or so ago, someone that lived on Ellington Road, her husband passed away from cancer, and then unfortunately she also contracted and passed away, I want to say maybe about a month or so ago. Prior to her passing, though, her son would take her to the doctors and all those types of things, and he said, Steve, she needs to get a wheelchair. We can't afford one, we don't have one. And so I reached out to the director, and she said, Steve, come pick one up. So I sent him over, he got a wheelchair, and, she used it to her dying day. They're now packing up the house. It's being transferred into the family name. They're keeping it in the family. However, I did go by there the other day, and I have not talked to Mr. Maniscalco or the director about this. However, I would like to make a suggestion that when we do have situations, if somebody does pass and there's wheelchairs, there's walkers, thank you, all of those different things, that we donate that to our services. I mean, the truck was full. And I said, yo, what happened to those wheelchairs? And he said, oh, they're right here. I said, yeah, bring them back out. I'll come by with my van and, take them over to the director because, as it's been said so many times, we do have an older population, but even for a young person that may need that and perhaps they can't afford it for whatever the reason may be. We do have a very strong health and human services development. We've given money back to them for these types of purposes. However, again, I implore our town, as I alluded to earlier, we're in this together. And if we're able to give back in that way, whether it's kids, whomever, to the resources that you have, and they're able to use them, then we should try and do that. And I'm sure that she would happily take those wheelchairs, the walkers. I don't know about the oxygen tanks, probably some insurance stuff, but I know she had a whole bunch of stuff for first aid, all of those types of things that cost money. But if she can give those back, and that's what they plan on doing. So I encourage our residents, if you have those types of situations that are popping up, please consider donating those things to our department there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just real briefly, I'd like to address my earlier comments earlier that was indeed lack of decorum and disrespectful to Councilor Pendleton, which should not ever occur and will never again. I have a great deal of respect for the service you've given this town for so many years. That being said, I'm very sorry.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to quickly say to the three members of the budget working group, thank you for all of your hard work. Clearly, I don't agree with some of the decisions you made, but I'm sure it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort on your parts to do this. And I know that you aren't doing it in a casual way. That everything that you guys do is thoughtful, and I appreciate the effort that you put in, the three of you, on behalf of the 9 of us. So thank you very much for your work on that.
Anything further? Seeing none, we've already done executive session. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Seeing none, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Tonight.